DND number 11, Circle of Life, in Jesus' Name, Part 3, Chapter 25. The reception was a load of fun. It was so much fun to watch the bride and groom dance and laugh and see that they felt so carefree. Almost every dream they told Mr. Keno they wished for had come true. The only one that hadn't so far was Desi's wish to graduate from high school, and she intended to take care of that after the new year. Gabe and Taylor performed a dance that they'd worked out for the couple and, of course, were a huge hit. Young Eric danced a few times with Charity and even danced a couple slow dances with Jordan, while he simply swayed back and forth, holding Jordan close. JoJo also danced a few times with Charity and, in between, went into service mode, helping with Emily so his dad could dance with his mom, and helping with Sophia, Kelson, and Ledger so his uncle could dance with his aunt. Melody and Logan danced almost every dance, and in between sat at their table and talked. Sometimes their conversation was more serious. Hush, S'mores. There's nobody here. Stop being so silly. Sometimes their conversation was more serious, like about life goals or faith, and sometimes it was light, and Logan would make her laugh. He'd just now done that and sat back admiring her smile and the twinkle in her eye. "I love the way you laugh," he said. She laughed again. "My mom says my laugh is very unladylike." He thought about that and then shook his head. "No, I think it's very feminine, very natural." He pulled out his phone when it buzzed. "Oh, well, I got to go to work." "Work?" He smiled. "I have to sing a few numbers. The good part is, us and the boys, we're going to get the band back together." Back when young Eric and JoJo and I were teenagers, we had a little band. Joe played the drums, I played guitar mostly, and young Eric played bass. We're going to do a couple of numbers for the bride and groom, except we're adding our newest member of the band, Gabe. Back in September, we found out that Gabe could sing, and we had him join us when we sang for Aunt Bree and Taylor's joint birthday party. It was a huge hit. "Oh, yeah, I think I saw that on social media." He rose. "Before I leave, can I get you something to drink?" She nodded, and he fetched her a cup of punch and then headed toward the little stage area. Melody drank her punch and watched as the other guys joined him. She was surprised to see Jeffy have a seat at the piano. Taylor and Jordan and Charity came back to the table to watch the performance with her. "Hello, everyone," Logan said into the mic. "I'm Logan Adams, and I've been asked to sing a special song for Desi and for Desi's mom and dad because when she was little, she used to sing this song with them. I understand, very dramatically." Everyone laughed. "As a matter of fact, I was wondering if we could get Desi up here to sing with us." "Absolutely not," she answered loudly. "Aw, come on," he prodded. "Not gonna happen," she said. Logan smiled. "Okay, I get it. I'll sing it alone. And for this number, I'm very happy to have my Aunt Jeffy, Dr. Juneflower Keno Wallace, up here. She has graciously agreed to play for me on this first song, so I don't have to sit behind the piano." Logan nodded at Jeffy, and she began to play. Her command of the piano surprised everyone. Most people didn't know that Jeffy was at the level of a concert pianist by the time she was 8 years old. Studying music had helped her to keep the thoughts of her brilliant mind in order and not so haphazard. The music coming from the piano was so beautiful that Logan didn't even need to sing, but after a very long intro, he put the mic to his mouth and began. "Oh, my darling, I've hungered for your touch." The entire place was dead silent. Logan's voice was literally taking people's breath away. How could anyone sing so beautifully? His voice stroked each word of Unchained Melody, making the females in the place sigh. Taylor was live streaming on Gabe's social media, and her phone was blowing up as people began commenting. And as he closed, "Godspeed your love to me," he finished, as Jeffy took over to end the song with a flourish on the piano. Everyone jumped to their feet. Desi and many others had to wipe tears from their eyes. "Thank you very much," Logan said into the mic. He went to the piano and held out his hand and helped Jeffy to her feet and kissed her cheek. "Let's hear it for my beautiful Aunt Jeffy," he said, and there was another huge round of applause. "She's going to stick around and help us with a few more numbers tonight." Logan picked up an electric guitar and lifted the strap over his head. Okay, so the boys and I call them my brothers, we got the band back together to honor our friends, Alec and Destiny Morgan, and we have a few numbers to do for you. Gabe Tanner is our newest member. He had to stop for a minute while everyone applauded. Gabe grinned his boyish grin and waved his hand in the air, then adjusted the mic stand. Alex and Desi's friends were all Gabe's age and had followed him on social media, and they were making a lot of noise for him. Yeah, Logan continued, we're glad to have Gabe with us. You might have seen his performance back in September, though he danced more than he sang. Gabe is the current mini-mart champ. He waded through another round of loud applause. Also with us on bass is Eric Keno III, the reigning champion of the Keno Challenge. Logan had to stop talking again as Eric got a huge ovation. Young Eric smiled and nodded as he plucked a few notes on his bass. And by the way, Eric's movie's coming out next month, so be sure to look for it. Logan turned and nodded toward the drums. And last but certainly not least, thanks to USC having a double bye before the big game next week against UCLA, their quarterback has agreed to fulfill his role in the band, my brother and Heisman candidate JoJo Adams. Again, the place went wild. JoJo grinned and waved his sticks in the air from where he sat behind the drums and then played a few shots. Okay, so here we go. Alec loves rock and roll, so this is for you, man. JoJo strummed his guitar a moment, nodded at the guys, counted it off, and the opening notes of Johnny Be Good sent the place into a frenzy. One would think it couldn't get any louder until Gabe moved forward and belted out. I'm going to try to... No, I'm not going to sing it. Deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens, there stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good. Logan leaned toward his mark, who never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play a guitar just like ringing a bell. Then all the guys joined in. Go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go. Go, Johnny, go, go. Go, Johnny, be good. Logan went back to the guitar riff and the place went wild. Jeffy was jamming out on the jazz piano. JoJo was beating the drums. Young Eric was looking very cool on the bass, and Gabe was singing his heart out. It was a great time, and when the song ended, everyone was on their feet. Melody felt like she was in heaven watching Logan do his thing. She was on her feet like everyone else, dancing in place, waving her arms in the air, letting loose and having a blast. They were working up a sweat, and for the second time, a guy carrying a tray of cups filled with punch stopped by the table, and again all the girls grabbed a glass and drank it down. The boys' next number was Staying Alive, which had a little dance solo in it for Gabe, which sent the girls into the stratosphere. And the last number ended with the whole place jumping up and down to shout. The guys put their instruments down. JoJo escorted his Aunt Jeffy off the stage. The others headed to the table where Jordan, Taylor, and Melody sat. When they arrived at the table, the girls congratulated them on a job well done. But the guys all had a puzzled look on their faces. Gabe kissed Taylor and looked down at her with a frown. Tay, have you been drinking? She giggled. If you mean alcohol, no. If you mean some of that strawberry banana punch, yes. Gabe glanced over at young Eric and Logan. Young Eric picked up one of the cups of punch and smelled it, then looked up with a smile. Guys, someone has spiked the punch. Well, that would be funny, Logan said, except we don't want our parents to be in trouble for not supervising the party and allowing underage drinking. Young Eric looked at Jordan. Did you drink any punch? She grinned and nodded. I had 2 glasses, and I do feel a little buzzed. Eric went immediately to the punch table and instructed the attendants to empty the bowls and bring out a different batch. He then went to report the incident to his parents. Logan pulled Melody to her feet, and she giggled. How many glasses of punch have you had? She shrugged. I'm not sure. I was so thirsty. Maybe 3 or 4. Do you feel funny? She giggled. Describe funny. He smiled. Intoxication. Oh, I'm thinking that may be a distinct possibility. Okay, well, we'd better get you sobered up. She put her arms up around his neck. Or we could go somewhere. Where do you want to go? She sighed. To heaven. He frowned. She was definitely intoxicated. Because that's where I am when I'm with you, she explained. He blew out a breath. Well, that's sweet. And I'm right there with you, but I can't return you to your parents with their daughter drunk. Well, then don't. Take me to your house. Take me to your bed. Taylor giggled, and so did Jordan. She's had a lot more to drink than we have, Jordan said. Gabe chuckled. Logan, you have a problem on your hands. What's the problem? Young Eric asked as he returned. Melody is pretty far gone, Gabe answered, and asking Logan to take her to his bed. Eric coughed and then laughed. I don't see what's so funny, Melody said. It's perfectly logical. He doesn't want my parents to see me when I'm drunk, and I have to sleep it off somewhere, right? So take me to bed. Melody, I have to take you home. Your parents will be expecting you. Well, Logan, start with some water to rehydrate and then some black coffee, young Eric said. He looked at Jordan and Taylor. And you too as well. I'll go get some water. Melody swayed against Logan. Come on, hon. Sit down, Logan said kindly. Okay, but I suddenly don't feel too good. You mean like nausea? Logan asked. If she's already sick, she may have alcohol poisoning, young Eric said. I better go get Aunt Jeffy, Logan said quickly. Watch her. Melody jumped to her feet. I gotta go. She stumbled toward the bathroom. I'll go with her, Taylor said as she chased after Melody. In the restroom, Taylor held Melody's hair back for her while she was sick. Melody went to the sink and rinsed her mouth and stared into the mirror. Taylor, Melody began. Did I really just ask Logan to take me to his bed? Taylor grimaced. You want the truth? Melody sighed. That's what I thought, she whimpered. Oh, why did I say that? Taylor shrugged. As you said, it was perfectly logical. Melody grimaced. I can't believe I'm on my first date with Logan and said those words, and now I've thrown up. What I wouldn't give for a toothbrush and toothpaste to clean my mouth. Taylor smiled. Don't cry, Melody. There's a whole pack of toothbrushes in the bride room. I'll be right back. While Taylor was gone, Melody worked on repairing the makeup on her cheek, but it wasn't working too well. She needed some more of Taylor's expensive concealer and face powder. She looked closely at her face, stroking her finger over the bruise on her cheek, remembering the fear she'd felt that Cade would actually hurt her. She shuddered. It wasn't long before Taylor came back. I found something even better, Taylor said. She handed her a little kit with toothbrush and toothpaste and mouthwash and ibuprofen and antacids and safety pins and feminine products. Melody brushed her teeth and splashed cold water on her face. She smiled at Taylor. Thank you so much, Taylor. You are the best. You're welcome. Are you feeling better? I mean, not so drunk anymore? I'm pretty tipsy, but no more nausea. I'm not used to drinking. I guess that's why I got sick. She looked in the mirror and grimaced. But could I borrow your concealer again? Sure. Let me do it for you. Taylor worked on Melody's face. So, maybe now you can tell me what happened to your cheek. Melody shrugged. I guess it's no big secret that I need to keep. I just didn't want Logan to find out. It was my ex-boyfriend. He broke up with me right before my senior year in high school. He broke up with me because he was going off to college and he didn't want to be held back by some high school girlfriend. Cold. Yeah, but I kind of understood, even though it did break my heart. Then once I was pretty much over him, he started coming back to see me, trying to get me to go out with him again. Okay, and you're not interested? No. I mean, he used to be a nice guy, but he's changed. And also, right there at the end, right before he broke up with me, he started pressuring me to go all the way with him. Not good. Melody nodded. So, last night, I went to see my brother play football, and I was standing in line at the concession stand, and Cade showed up, and he grabbed me and pulled me out of line and over to the side of the concession building. It's really all a blur to me now, but what we argued. He wants me to go out with him, and he wants me to have sex with him, and he's not taking no for an answer. He wouldn't let me leave. I told him I was there with my parents, and he actually said that he could take my father out with one punch. Taylor's mouth fell open. Right? And then he grabbed my face, and he kissed me. Oh, Taylor frowned. So, This is a fingerprint. Melody nodded as tears welled in her eyes. A thumbprint, yeah. Taylor looked into her eyes. Oh, Melody, bless your heart. She put her arms around her and hugged her, then pulled away. And you don't want to tell Logan? She sniffed. No. He might go after him. Well, there's no might to it, Taylor said. Well, what if he gets hurt? Or what if he gets arrested for hurting Cade? I mean, there's so much that could go wrong. And if he fights Cade and wins, which I realize he probably would, it won't stop Cade. He'll come after me even harder. I keep hoping he'll just give up and leave me alone. Taylor frowned. Well, those are all problems, Melody, but you have to know that Logan will figure them out, or his father will, or my father will, or Granddad will. I mean, you have a whole lot of people that can figure out the best thing for this situation. You should talk to someone about it. I just need time to think about that, about what to do or who to talk to. For now, though, it's my first real date with Logan, and I don't want to mess it up with this stupid thing. I just want to enjoy being out with Logan. I mean, it took him forever to ask me out. Taylor smiled. So you're interested in him? She sighed. Interested is an understatement. I mean, he makes me feel so. I don't even know. I mean, he's so kind. He's so thoughtful. He's so smart and talented. When he's not around, which is most of the time, I think about him, the way he smiles at me as if I'm actually someone important, like I'm a real person. Taylor frowned. You are important, Melody, and you are a real person, and it sounds like you really like him. Like, a lot. She smiled. I really do. Well, I can't speak for him, but I know him well enough to know that he really likes you too. He says you're gorgeous. Really? Yeah, that's what he said back at the memorial we had. He said you were freaking gorgeous, but it's not just your looks. She pulled away and looked Melody over. There, I think we have the bruise covered up. Thank you so much, Taylor. You're welcome, again, but listen, don't take too long to think about things, about this Cade guy. You have backup, girlfriend. So much backup. Melody nodded. Well, let's go back out there before they come looking for us. They headed back out to the table, and Jeffy came to see about Melody. She looked into her eyes, put her hand to her head, and jerked it back again quickly. What? Melody asked. Jeffy shook her head and touched Melody's cheek, right on the spot where the bruise is. She raised her eyebrows. You know what? Melody blinked, her expression pained. We'll talk tomorrow. The alcohol is still in your system right now. It'll take 4 hours at least to be sober, but you don't have alcohol poisoning. You do need to drink some water. Yes, ma'am, Melody mumbled. Gabe leaned over to Taylor and whispered in her ear. Do you know what that's all about? Taylor looked up into his eyes and sighed. Well, Tay, tell me. I can't. I sort of promised. Is she in danger? Is she sick? Maybe. I promise I'll fill you in a little bit later. Before the night is over, Gabe insisted. Tara realized it wasn't a request, but an order. Okay. 2 hours passed by the time the evening was coming to a close. The cake had been cut and served. Logan and Melody had danced several more times. The bridal bouquet had been thrown. Everyone had seen the happy couple off. They were headed to their new home instead of a fancy hotel. They said the home felt like a fancy hotel anyway, and they were very much looking forward to being there as husband and wife. They'd been admonished to begin their time together there with prayers, invoking God's blessings on their home and their union. People were starting to clean up and go home. Logan and JoJo started loading all of his equipment into his vehicle, while Gabe, young Eric, and Taylor broke down tables and put away chairs, along with the workers hired to take care of everything, and the caterers and the other people helping. The work was finished quickly, and by 10 p.m. the church was back to its original state and ready for the next morning. Melody sat on a sofa in the front foyer waiting for Logan. When he came to collect her, she was sound asleep. He sat down next to her. Jordan said she couldn't walk another step on her foot, and young Eric had scooped her up and carried her to the car. Gabe grabbed Taylor's hand and walked her out to his car. Logan touched Melody's arm. Hey, Melody, he said softly. She drew a sharp breath and opened her eyes. Oh, sorry. I guess I'm really tired. Well, you're still a little intoxicated, he said. She smiled. Well, at least I'm not asking you to take me to your bed anymore. Yeah, but you say that like it's a good thing, he quipped, making her laugh. He sighed. Well, I guess it's time for me to take you home. I guess so, but take the long way. Make the drive last a good long while. Why? Oh, she sighed. I guess because I don't want this night to end. He smiled. That's good to hear because I feel the same way. Really? Why? Because I've loved spending time with you. Not because you love performing for everyone? Well, I love that too. Me too, she sighed. You were so awesome. I could watch you sing all day and all night. He swallowed hard. I can tell you're still not sober. She yawned. Why? Because you're saying things I know you wouldn't normally say. I'm not lying. I don't think you're lying. I just think you wouldn't normally tell me these things. You're usually more guarded than that. I am? Like I'm a snob or something? No, Melody, there's nothing snobby about you. But like, you're a little shy, or maybe keep your thoughts a little close to the vest. She sighed. He took her hand and pulled her to her feet. Can you walk? He asked as she swayed slightly. Of course I can, she said with a soft laugh. He got her to the car with no problem. As he drove toward Huntington Beach, he glanced over at her. She was about the cutest thing in the world. So feminine, so soft, so sweet, so kind, so smart, so pretty, so everything. And he really agreed. He didn't want this night to end, so he would have to procure another date to look forward to before he left her at her door. New scene. Gabe stood by the passenger door of his car. Taylor leaned up against it, and he sighed. He was tired. He'd worked hard and partied hard all day, and on stage he'd expended a great deal of energy. Taylor was looking at her phone. You went viral again, she said without looking up. He nodded. Cool. Are there lots of comments about Logan or about JoJo's drumming or about Jeffy? She laughed. Yes, to all of the above. Good. She looked up at him and noticed the tenseness to his jaw, and she frowned. Gabe, are you mad at me? His eyes opened in surprise. Mad at you? Of course not. He had a quick flashback to his mom asking his father the same thing, usually when his father was in business mode. His father would explain what he was thinking about, and it helped his mom to understand him better. It helped Gabe, too. He wondered if he was taking on his father's persona a bit. Even though most people thought of them as opposites in personality, his father, very serious and businesslike, and Gabe, happy-go-lucky. Why would you think I was mad at you? Gabe asked. She shrugged. I wasn't sure why. That's why I asked. Maybe because I didn't realize the punch was spiked. I mean, how dumb is that? He smiled. You're not dumb, though sometimes a little oblivious. She laughed. Well, I was in party mode. He nodded. And wow, Gabe, when you started singing on Johnny Be Good, I thought I was going to jump out of my body. You were so awesome. He chuckled. Thanks. So, it's time. Time? Time to tell me what's up with Melody and Jeffy. Oh, that, she sighed. Well, Jeffy picked up on what happened to Melody last night. Okay, and so what happened to Melody last night? Taylor went on to explain everything Melody told her, including how afraid she was, how her hands shook when she told Taylor what happened, how she was afraid for her father, and how she was afraid to be alone and yet didn't want to tell Logan because she is afraid of where that might lead. Gabe nodded. So, Logan doesn't know anything about last night at all? Right. But he saw the guy's car go by Melody's house earlier this morning. Right? So he knows she's being stalked. Taylor shrugged. I guess. He frowned as he thought. So now you're mad at me? She asked. No, I'm just thinking. Taylor, are you still a little bit buzzed? I don't know. Why? Because usually you wouldn't really care if I was mad. And if I was, you'd tell me to get over it. Tears welled in her eyes, and he shook his head. Okay, Tay, it's okay, he said, knowing now it was definitely the alcohol making her emotional. Hey, I have to make a phone call. You sit down in the car, okay? He opened the door and she got in. He bent over and kissed her. Just give me a few minutes. Are you going to tell Logan? Not yet. Melody is going to hate me. Don't be silly. He closed her door and stood at the back of the car and made his call. Gabe, everything okay? Joey asked. I'm not sure. I have some information and I'll let you make that decision. I don't feel good about something I just found out and I'm concerned about Melody and Logan. Okay, lay it on me. Gabe explained everything he knew to the second in command at Ameritech, who listened quietly. Gabe finished with, Look, I know I'm just a kid and not even an official agent yet, but I feel like we need to make sure this guy doesn't jump Logan or hurt Melody when she's out and about on her own. Joey sighed. You have good instincts, Tanner, and as far as I'm concerned, you became an official agent the day you took out 2 guys and almost gave your life for my niece. Well, thank you, sir. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to get Melody's schedule and put a guy on her, and I have to talk to Logan. We can't let him be blindsided. So I'm not being, overprotective? No. Here's a statistic for you, Gabe. Right now, there are almost 600 rapes per day in our country alone. That's 4,200 per week, and 25% of those are perpetrated by the ex. And that's only the ones that were actually reported. So as shameful as those statistics are, I don't think we can be too careful. I know you're young and it's a hard thing to come to grips with. Women have been raped since the beginning of time. The devil knows how to destroy. It's up to us good guys to protect women and to influence other men to protect women. And I don't think we're overreacting because a good many of those rapes are perpetrated by young men on high school and college campuses. Young men the ages of this Cade person, who feels like it's her fault for arousing him and not following through. That is exactly what happened to Milena. Well, should I call Logan then? Gabe asked. I'll take care of that, Joey said, or I may speak to Mark and have him take care of it. Yes, sir. Then I guess I'll be getting Taylor home. You do that, and be careful, and thanks for the heads up. Yes, sir. New scene. Well, Melody, I drove around as long as I could, but it's time to get you home, Logan said as he pulled in her driveway. She smiled. Logan, I had such a good time today. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for coming. I had a great time, and you were the reason. He got out of the car and came around to open her door. So you'll see if you can come to Sunday dinner tomorrow night? Yes, I'll see. Call me tomorrow after church, and I'll let you know. He helped her out and closed her door, and they headed up the walk toward the front door. Are you feeling better? No more dizziness? I think I'm good, she said softly as they got to the front door. She turned and leaned against the wall beside the door. Again, Logan, thank you. And you were awesome singing and playing that guitar tonight. He smiled, and she smiled too and looked up at him. I still don't want this night to end. Me neither, he said quietly. His heart was pounding in his chest. He reached up to touch her face and moved close. Slowly he bent down, and she lifted her face to him, and he touched his lips lightly to hers, brushing them back and forth across her lips, and then pressed harder. She sighed in the back of her throat, and he took that as permission. He moved even closer, took her face in both of his hands, and kissed her thoroughly. He lifted his head and smiled down at her. That was nice, she said softly. He smiled. Do it again. His eyebrows rose. Had he heard what he thought he'd heard? He looked into her eyes, and she had an expectant look on her face. This time he pulled her against him and kissed her long and slow, and finally pulled away. She was breathing hard, so was he. He stepped back. You'd better go in. She sighed, found her keys, and turned to open her front door. She stepped inside and turned with a sweet smile. Good night, Logan. Good night, Melody. Thanks again. Thank you. Talk to you tomorrow. I can't wait, he said with a smile. He stood there and watched her close the door, a huge smile on his face. He turned and headed to his car. He pulled out his phone when it buzzed. Hey, Dad, hold on a minute. He got in the car and started it up. Okay. Is everything okay? Mom's okay? Mom's okay. Where are you? I just dropped Melody off at her house. Why? Is she inside, door closed and locked? Yes. Why? You're making me nervous. Okay, well, I have a little story to tell you. New scene. It is November 16th, 11 p.m., Saturday night, the Morgan home, Santa Ana, California. Alec Morgan laid in a soft bed in his new home, smiling at his young bride as she cuddled up close to him. Did you have a good day? Oh, Alec, it was the best day ever. Everything was so smooth and so calm. No stress like you hear about weddings. It was really perfect. Did you think so? I did. Of course, it helps the stress when you know that someone else is taking care of all the details and paying for everything. She sighed. The Kenos are the best people I've ever met, and I must have said thank you 100 times today, and Mrs. Keno brushed it away like it was nothing. Mr. Keno did too, and Eric did too. I really think they don't want any thanks for it, Desi said. Alec nodded. Mr. Keno told me to pay it forward. Well, let's really make sure that we do that. I mean, like, what someone did for us, let's do that for someone else one day. You mean find a homeless couple and get them off the streets and give them a wedding? Yes, I mean, really. When we were in the shelter, I met at least 3 other couples. I'm not sure of their circumstances, but I'm sure they needed help. Well, let's make it a goal then, Des. I mean, ideally, I need to get through school and get a good paying job, but I'm working now, and we can set aside a little something every paycheck to put toward our goal of helping someone off the streets, even if it's only $20. She giggled. Just a month ago, $20 to us would have been a fortune. Do you remember being so hungry or thirsty? I actually hope I'll never forget, Alex said. He ran his fingers over her lovely face. I'm actually grateful for the experience we've been through. I love you, Desi. I love you. Promise me that if you start to feel differently or like sad or depressed or disappointed in me or angry with me or lonely or something like that, promise me that we'll talk about it and go to Grandmaster Keno or someone like him to get marriage counseling. I promise. Good, because I will never leave you. I will never cheat on you. I will never ask you for a divorce. And there's something else I want to do. What's that? I want to get baptized and go to church and learn about Jesus and all of his teachings. And I want to live by God's laws and, well, just do things right. Like the Kenos. I want to be the best man I can be so that you and our son will be able to trust me and look to me to do the right things for our family. Desi's eyes filled with tears. Well, Alec, she said as she sniffed, I didn't think I could be happier, and now I am. Well, I'm glad that makes you happy. I'm glad you feel free to tell me your innermost thoughts, she said. He was quiet a minute. So, I guess your dad doing like a 180, I guess that makes you happy too? So happy. And Charity is in heaven. She says he really is like a different person. I was thinking about your mom, Alex said. I mean, your dad went way off in a different direction for years, and your mom, she stayed by his side, and she didn't give up on him. And he finally came back and got his head on straight. She's an amazing lady. You're right, Alec, and the fact that you can see what she did tells me you're going to be an amazing husband. Well, stay by me, Des. Don't give up on me. Never. I love you so much. He pulled her close and kissed her. Thank you, God, he prayed softly. New scene. It is November 17th, 5 a.m., Sunday morning. Mark Adams' home, Newport Beach, California. Mark Adams was the second child and first son of Shelley and Robert Adams. His mother and father divorced when he was only 7. His father had just recently passed away. Mark was the middle child, the younger brother of Brianna Adams Keno and the older brother of Joey Adams. He'd been 8 years old when Eric Keno Sr. came into their lives and was pretty much raised by him and his mom. Mark and brother Joey were trained in the martial arts by both their stepfather, Eric Sr., and by their stepbrother, Ricky. Mark, like his son JoJo, was a Heisman candidate quarterback. Out of high school, he was recruited by the biggest Division I schools, but chose Hawaii to learn about and be close to his step-grandparents. Mark's eldest son, Joseph Adams, Jojo, was the product of a strange one-night stand offered to him on his 18th birthday by a girl who was dying of brain cancer. Jojo's biological mother died shortly after his birth, and Jojo, with his light brown hair and his big brown eyes, was raised the first 4 years of his life by his grandparents, Shelley and Eric Kino, while Mark was away at school. Mark's chances of going pro were ended by a knee injury, which didn't devastate him like some thought it would, because he'd grown weary of the game taking precedence over everything in his life. He decided he wanted to be more helpful to the world and took the path of getting his law degree. It took him longer because he came home from college and worked his way through law school and took over the care of his young son. He wanted to take full responsibility for his life. He met the love of his life when he was 30 and Jojo was 12. That woman, Bella Landau at the time, was a victim of severe domestic violence. Mark intervened, and they fell in love and were married. She brought with her to the marriage her 11-year-old son, Logan. Bella had beautiful black hair and big blue eyes, and Logan had his mother's blue eyes, but his hair was light brown. Mark, having been taken under the wing of Justin Lee, became a crack-shot criminal defense attorney but went further, studying and mastering every aspect of the law. He was made managing partner of Justin's law firm by the time he was 36, and now at age 40 helps to run one of the nation's largest and most prestigious law firms. He does a lot of pro bono work, and like his stepfather, he does his best to serve God and champion and protect the innocent. The Adams home in Newport was not a giant estate like his parents' home or his sisters' and brother-in-law's home, but it was very nice. A lovely, sprawling mansion off of Jamboree Road. It had a large green front yard, a 6-car garage, 3 levels, and a beautiful pool and backyard kitchen area. It was only a few miles from the ocean, and many mornings Mark, Jojo, and Logan took their run to the beach, trained on the beach at sunrise, and ran home before most people's day had begun, this being a habit developed by Eric Sr.'s training. They worked tirelessly every day to be the best they could be, physically, mentally, and spiritually. On this particular Sunday morning after the Morgan wedding, Logan finally gave up trying to sleep and went to take a shower. It had taken a long time for the rage to calm enough for him to even try to go to bed. Jojo had taken time to talk him down, though Jojo probably wasn't the one to do that because Jojo was also having to tamp down the anger. All Logan could see in his mind all night was that jerk pushing Melody against a brick wall and squeezing her cheeks in his big hand and putting his mouth on her. He couldn't get it out of his brain. Then he remembered him grabbing her arm in her front yard the day Logan had gone over to help her with yard work. Logan wanted to beat the guy to a pulp, and Melody had probably been afraid to tell him because of that. Was she protecting her ex or him? He dressed for church and made his way downstairs. The house was still quiet. Grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge, he drank it down and then went searching for food and decided to cook. He fried 2 eggs and layered them between 2 thick pieces of cheese and smeared toast with mayo, placed the eggs and cheese between the 2 fat pieces of toasted bread, cut the sandwich in half, and sat down at the breakfast bar. He'd eaten half the sandwich when his father came downstairs and entered the kitchen. "You're up early," Mark Adams said. Logan nodded. "Having a hard time, son?" Logan nodded. Mark sighed and sat down next to him. "I know where your mind is going." Logan blinked and nodded. "I thought she had dirt on her face, but it was a bruise." Mark drew a breath. "And you're blending that in with seeing bruises on your mother's face. And arms and back and neck and legs." Mark sighed. "I get it, Logan. But son, you have to separate this. It's not the same. And we're going to put a stop to it right now. It won't go any further." Logan nodded. "No, it won't." Mark put his hand on Logan's shoulder. "After you eat, let's go in my office and have a prayer together." Logan nodded again. "I'd like that, Dad." He watched his father as he went about making himself some herbal tea. How's Mom feeling? She's doing well. Morning sickness hasn't been too bad. It should be over soon, right? I mean, doesn't it usually go away after about 3 months? Yes, and that means she has almost another whole month to go. Oh. He looked up at the man who'd adopted him. His love and respect for Mark Adams knew no bounds. He'd come into Logan's and his mom's lives like the hero he was. Logan's mom had been terribly abused by Logan's biological father. But Logan's martial arts teacher, Master Mark, had come into their lives and rescued his mother. And he loved his mother, and he loved Logan. And he was such a good man. So, did I wake you? No, Joey did. Oh, why is Uncle Joey calling you so early in the morning? To give me a status report. On, he nodded, on Melody's problem. I'm listening. Mark added some honey to his tea and looked at Logan. Ameritech planted a bug on Cade Kessler's car right after Joey and I spoke. They also accessed his cell phone records. And he drove past our house after you left last night 3 times. Last time about 2 a.m. His cell phone records show him in the area of her home 20 or 30 times in the past week. Then again, his family lives in the area. Where? Don't start, Logan. I have to do something. Mark nodded. You will. We would like you to give her a call and invite her entire family over here today for Sunday dinner. You understand we have to tell her family what's happening. Logan thought and nodded. We have an agent watching over the Keith family today until they arrive here, assuming they agree to come. I want to speak with her parents separately, fill them in on the situation, and I'm sure you have things you want to say to Melody. We'll also speak with her brothers. We will not let this go any further. Okay, I'll give her a call in a few hours, but Dad, I'm telling you now, I cannot let this go. He hurt her. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, Mark quoted. Logan sighed. Yes, sir. But he'd better stay away from her, because if he comes near her, I won't think twice about killing another man. Logan, that is not who you are. Isn't it? What I did, what I had to do to save my mother, it's inside me. It stays with me. It sounds to me like you need further counseling, Logan. I don't feel like ending my own life anymore. But you still think of yourself as a killer? Logan sighed and thought, No, I really don't. I sing and I play beautiful music and I write words to songs about love and celestial type ideas. I think of myself as gentle and filled with God's light. Mark nodded. Good. Hold that thought. Hold it. Just because you'll rise up and become a warrior when necessary doesn't make you a killer. You're a good guy, Logan. You're becoming a good man. Stay that way. I'm sure that's how Melody sees you. Don't disappoint her. Yes, sir. I want to be a good man in her eyes and in God's eyes, so that's what I'll do. He sighed and offered his father a sheepish grin. Thanks, Dad, for, talking me down off the cliff. Mark smiled. Well, this time around it wasn't very hard because I know you were just venting. Logan gave a soft laugh. So, Mark began, how serious is it between you and Melody? Logan sighed. It's getting more and more serious by the day. But you've only been on 1 date. Yeah, but I've had my eye on her for a while, and the way she kissed me last night, I think she feels the same way. Mark smiled. Well, good for you. And that is the end of chapter 25.